Imagine living in a world where every whisper could be recorded, every letter stolen, every friend a potential spy. This was not fiction, it was real. In the Soviet Union, it was the KGB. In East Germany, the Stasi. In Romania, the Securitate. And together, these agencies built one of the most terrifying webs of surveillance in modern history. The Stasi alone recruited nearly 200,000 informants, a number so vast that in some neighborhoods, 1 out of every 3 people was secretly spying. Imagine going to work, laughing with a friend, or speaking at home, never knowing if your words would be copied into a government file. Trust itself became a gamble, silence became safety, and suspicion crept into every relationship. It was not mere paranoia. It was the reality of daily life behind the Iron Curtain. Surveillance extended far beyond human informants. Entire factories produced hidden microphones and wiretaps. Devices were concealed inside lamps, under tables, behind paintings, even within children's toys. A hotel room might appear ordinary, but every word spoken could be captured. Playing music too loudly was considered suspicious because it masked conversations. In some apartments, wallpaper hid wires that led into a secret listening room next door. It created the feeling that the walls themselves could hear. Privacy was shattered, and people began to live with constant self-censorship, afraid that a careless joke could be their undoing. Among the strangest and most unsettling methods of surveillance was the Stasi's infamous smell archive. Agents were trained to capture the scent of suspects by wiping chairs, beds, and even personal clothing with chemically treated cloths. These cloths were sealed inside glass jars, labeled with names, and stored in endless rows like trophies of invisible conquest. The reasoning was chilling. Specially trained dogs could track a dissident years later, using only that preserved trace of human odor. Nothing escaped the reach of the state. Not your words, not your thoughts, not even the chemical signature of your own body. Imagine realizing that your sweat, your breath, and even the scent of your skin could be cataloged, owned, and weaponized. And no private letter was safe. Inside secret postal offices, machines hissed with steam, opening envelopes, photographing contents, and resealing them with surgical precision so no trace of tampering remained. A love letter, a family update, even a child's drawing could be intercepted and silently copied into government files. In East Germany alone, millions of personal messages were stored away. Years later, citizens opened the archives and found their most intimate words, poetry, confessions, jokes, preserved as evidence. The state transformed every act of communication into a tool of suspicion. Words written in love or hope became weapons, stripping language itself of trust and turning paper into silent betrayal. Beyond the letters and the listening walls, the eyes of the state followed dissidents wherever they went. Surveillance teams shadowed targets with expert precision, trained to remain just close enough to see, but far enough to avoid detection. Some wore disguises, milkman, priest, worker, slipping seamlessly into everyday life. A walk to the market, a quiet stroll in the park, even moments of mourning at funerals were observed and noted. For prominent dissidents, as many as 40 agents might follow at once, recording every movement in obsessive detail. It was not just intelligence gathering, it was psychological warfare, a constant reminder that resistance meant being hunted every waking moment. Perhaps the most devastating weapon was betrayal within the family. Children were encouraged in schools to repeat suspicious phrases heard at home. Spouses informed on one another. Neighbors reported friends to shield themselves from suspicion. Love itself became a liability. In such an atmosphere, even the warmth of family bonds was corroded by fear. Conversations grew cautious, laughter subdued, intimacy laced with unspoken risk. Trust was transformed into a dangerous gamble. To share a thought was to risk exposure. To confide in a loved one was to invite danger. The regime had turned fear into the strongest bond of all, poisoning loyalty and silencing affection inside every home. When the communist regimes collapsed in the late 1980s, Citizens stormed secret archives, uncovering the vast machinery of surveillance. Inside, they found endless corridors stacked floor to ceiling with files, photographs, and tapes. Some discovered that lifelong friends had been informants. Others faced devastating revelations that spouses or even parents had betrayed them under pressure. The Stasi alone left behind more than 100 miles of documents, a paper trail stretching across a nation. These records revealed not only how information was gathered, but how suspicion itself became a weapon to control society. The opening of the archives was liberation, but also a wound that exposed just how deeply fear had been woven into daily life. The files are open, secrets exposed, but the warning remains. Fear and silence can enslave a nation. The question is, could it happen again?